Welcome ladies and gents, Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter, or of course you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing, let's talk about the whole saga with Kambosos and Haney, and then of course with Fury and Whyte and that famed now radio appearance from Frank Warren with the lawyer of Dillian Whyte. We'll get into all the nooks and crannies and try to see where the blame should lie, if indeed anywhere, and how we can hope to see these fights occur. Firstly, we'll start off with Kambosos and Haney. There has been an accusation from a lot of Devin Haney fans that Kambosos is now ducking Devin Haney because the talks with ESPN have ceased, and how this was somehow a big plan of Kambosos in order to try and force Haney onto ESPN, which they know won't happen, and as a result it's the equivalent of Kambosos ducking Haney. I'm going to give you some background context before I show you that actually this is the other way around. If this fight doesn't occur, it's Devin Haney that is ducking Kambosos. First and foremost, to give you some background context, yes, I picked Kambosos in a prospect watch video to be a star of the future potentially if he was to tweak a couple of things in his arsenal. This was back when he was still a domestic prospect in Australia. As far as I know, nobody in the Western world was talking about him, at least nobody that I knew. No boxing channels or anything from the US or the UK or anything like that. But I've been big on him for a long time. So a lot of people would say, maybe you're biased because of that. He's also of Greek origin. So many people would say, Chris might be biased because he's of Greek origin. These questions of bias didn't actually occur until the build-up of Teofimo Lopez and Kambosos. And what I did there was basically show footage to debunk this ridiculous claim that was doing the rounds on social media that somehow Kambosos had very slow reflexes. And I was explaining to everybody that from a physical perspective, in terms of physical attributes, the best physical attribute he's got at his disposal is his reflexes. It's part of his counter-punching, pressure-fighting game. He relies on it. Without that, you can't do what he does. And I explained that I tentatively picked Teofimo Lopez. Tentatively, but I was picking him. I just felt it came a little bit too early for Kambosos. But that if Kambosos was to get out of the first 6 rounds and hadn't accrued too much damage, he could win this fight. And that alone, just me saying this guy's got great reflexes, I don't know where this rumour's come from, he's a top level fighter, and he could potentially win this fight. He's a live dog. If he gets out the first 6 rounds, it's on. Just me saying that made people accuse me of being biased. Well, the fight itself showed you that there was no bias and it was genuinely analysis. But even after that, what you then saw occur in the build-up to this Haney-Kambosos showdown, there was talks of Kambosos at one point, rumours that Kambosos was demanding that the fight occur in Australia, but that Haney didn't want to go and get that forced medication, you know what I'm talking about, in order to be able to allow to enter Australia. What did I do? I came on this channel and I said, if this is indeed a demand and a stumbling block, Devin Haney's in the right here, because no man should be forced to give up their bodily autonomy in order to get a shot at a fight. Now, that doesn't mean that Kambosos has to somehow fight his next fight against Devin Haney on neutral territory. He's entitled to a homecoming. Let him fight whoever he wants, whether it's a bum or another star. I'm fine with him doing that. But after that homecoming fight, you cannot force a man, like I said, to go down that route. So you would have to accept a fight on neutral territory. Make it happen in Dubai. Make it happen in the United Kingdom, right? If you want to have it in the US, have it in the US. It's up to you. But you can't demand that he has to undergo these medical interventions. I had a lot of Kambosos fans come on the channel and start telling me what you're talking about. If Kambosos wants to fight in Australia for the rest of his life, he can. What's the big deal? No, I didn't do that. I didn't go down that route. I told you that was wrong. It would be the equivalent of him holding the belt hostage. You get your homecoming fight, then you have to be fair about where you fight the guy if you really want to prove that you're the king of the division. So, not only did I pick against Kambosos against Teofimo Lopez, albeit tentatively, I felt it came a little bit too early for him. And not only have I backed Devin Haney initially in the dispute, some people were still saying, is this guy biased? Initially, they were saying that. Afterwards, I think most people actually felt Chris is not biased here, and I've received a lot of compliments on this channel precisely for that reason, for not being biased, for being impartial. Well, now I'm going to back Kambosos pretty big on this situation, because people are accusing him of, like I said, ducking Devin Haney. But let's consider this for a moment. ESPN have now become the favourites to host the fight if this fight is to occur, because DAZN have ceased talks to host the fight. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, Devin Haney, this was always the plan. Why would he fight on ESPN? Let's consider the evidence here. First and foremost, Devin Haney is a free agent when it comes to networks. He can appear on any network. He doesn't have to fight on DAZN. So this is not a case of Crawford and Spence, where guys appeared to be tied down to a specific network, and you had all this talk of let's cross the street and all that. Even that you can find loopholes through because both networks can televise a show, right? But you get these stumbling blocks. That doesn't exist here. Secondly, Devin Haney himself said as long as they match the offer of Lomachenko, I'm willing to take the fight. Well, they have, according to reports, matched that offer. He's still not signed, right? His promoter, his own promoter, Eddie Hearn, on more than one occasion, and I showed you the tweets in my last video, okay, I've shown you this, has said that Devin Haney should take the fight, even if it's a little bit less than what Haney wants himself. Bear in mind, it does match, according to reports, what Lomachenko was offered. But Devin Haney has been invested in perhaps above his market value, according to reports, early in his career, because the DAZN see this guy as a potential superstar. So the way they see it is, let's invest in this dude now, we'll pay over the value at the moment, we'll tie him up to us essentially, we'll develop a relationship, then when he becomes a superstar, we're going to recoup that money through pay-per-view and so on and so forth. Well, at the moment, Devin, we're overpaying you a lot. Maybe it's time to take what's worthwhile for you in terms of your current market value, your true market value, even if it's a little bit less than that. Take the fight, take those titles. This is your stairway to stardom. This is the door for you. This is the moment. Take the fight. His own promoter is telling him this. So where do people get off blaming Kambosos? It's baffling to me. He's made him an offer. He's given him the opportunity. No longer does it appear an obstacle with regards to Haney fighting in Australia. If that was still the obstacle, Haney did not want to undergo that medical intervention, I would still be backing Haney. But that's not an obstacle anymore. That's not an issue, according to Bill Haney and according to Devin himself. So if that's not an obstacle and he's willing to do whatever's necessary to make the fight happen, even if it's in Jupiter, that was the claim, how can you then start to accuse Kambosos of being the cause for this fight not occurring? Now, there was apparently, according to internet rumours, I think the Boxing Voice hinted at this as well, there was apparently a rumour that there was a demand that Devin Haney would then fight his follow-up fight on ESPN against Vasyl Lomachenko. Again, he's not tied to a network. Isn't that what you would want Devin Haney to do? Isn't that what Devin Haney himself would want to do? If he beats George Kambosos and takes all the belts, there's still going to be a crowd out there who are going to be saying, listen, you are the official undisputed champion. But Lomachenko's still really the king, right? He's the guy that's going to go down as the all-time great. This is a legacy fight. You should take this fight. Surely Devin Haney wants that fight. We've heard all this talk all this time of Kambosos jumped in to fight Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez could have fought Haney but was scared of him. Lomachenko was scared of Haney. He wanted all that smoke. Lomachenko gave up the title to become franchise champ so he could avoid Devin Haney. Well, here's Haney's opportunity to get his hands on Lomachenko. So what do you mean? I don't get it. He's not tied to a network. Doesn't he want to fight Kambosos and then Lomachenko? Imagine he knocks them both out or just beats them. Imagine he beats them both on points. He's a superstar. He's the new king of American boxing. Why would you not want that? It's baffling to me, man. And then people to accuse Kambosos of ducking. This is a dude that's fought all over the world. Greece, the UK, New Zealand, America, Australia. He's a road warrior. His last 3 fights, he's won them clearly. And all 3 of them went down to split decisions. If that was me, I'd be afraid of fighting outside my own country, to be honest with you. I'd be seeing it as, bloody hell, man, they were trying to rob me. And I had to overcome those obstacles. And now I'm going to fight a guy who is potentially such a star that they overly invested in him to turn him into a superstar of the future. And you think they're not going to try and rob me now? They tried to rob me against Mickey Bay and Selby, and they're not going to rob me against Devin Haney? That's how I would think of it. But the fact that he's still willing to make these fights happen shows you that this guy's not ducking. How can you lay the blame at the feet of Kambosos? It's baffling to me, man. If you disagree, let me know. Now, and listen, let me know, but give me your reasoning, okay? I don't just want to hear, oh, you're biased or something stupid. Give me your reasoning. Now, moving on from that, let's talk about Frank Warren and the whole appearance on TalkSport. Again, some background context. From back in 2012, I used to say that Tyson Fury would be the man to overthrow Vladimir Klitschko, a diamond in the rough. He had all the attributes to become a superstar. People back then used to laugh at him. This is a guy that's uppercutting himself in the face. He's losing to McDermott. I used to get cussed so badly on Twitter for saying this. By 2015, before he even fought Vladimir Klitschko, I doubled down. I upped my game. I said, not only is he going to overthrow Vladimir Klitschko, this guy has the potential to become the best of all time. Not the greatest. The greatest is about status. And I think when it comes to status, it's going to take an awful lot for somebody to overthrow Muhammad Ali, right? But in terms of the best, just the best, he's got the potential. You can't accuse me of being anti-Fury, therefore, okay? Because when I was saying these things, people were laughing at me. Well, now we're looking at the situation with Dillian Whyte, and it's ludicrous. It's ludicrous to be cussing Dillian Whyte for this situation. Let's consider this for a moment. Well, first and foremost, these two were going at it. And the premise of Frank Warren's position was, is it written in the contract what it is that you've demanded? You know, you've demanded these comp tickets and things like that. Was it written in the contract? Because if it wasn't, you have no leg to stand on. Here's the problem with this approach. There are things which are typically done that you may have ideally wanted to put into a contract, but you look at the context of the situation. And if they're typically done, you're going to accept that they're going to be done in the fight when you're in a desperate position to accept the fight. Had Dillian Whyte not accepted the contract, had he not signed it, why haven't you signed the contract? The fight wouldn't have happened. This was his opportunity. As if he's going to not fight Tyson Fury for an amazing status. You're going to catapult yourself if you win this fight into the real elite of the heavyweight division. As if you're not going to take that fight because there are small things that you really want. Things like comp tickets that you would expect to get. How can you expect a fighter who's a star like Dillian Whyte not to get free tickets to give to his family, his friends, his support group? He got something like 5-6 tickets, right? Fury got thousands apparently, according to reports. But who gets 5-6 tickets? You could be a journeyman, they're going to give you more than 5-6 tickets. It's madness, right? Now, bear in mind, the root cause of all this. This isn't anything to do with Tyson Fury. This is why I don't get why Tyson Fury fans are immediately trying to dismiss what Dillian Whyte is saying here. This has nothing to do with Fury. Fury doesn't care how many free tickets Dillian Whyte gets. He doesn't care about the artwork. Tyson Fury wants to fight Dillian Whyte. This isn't a beef between Whyte and Fury. This is a beef between Whyte and the WBC combined with Queensberry. That's where the beef is. Now, basically what has happened, according to what I can tell, okay? I don't want to be open to any legal action here. This is according to the evidence I've seen that's public. And according to what I can tell, Dillian Whyte is very unhappy with the purse split. We know that. I've done a video on that. I will put it in the description box below to explain why Dillian Whyte, in my humble opinion, was correct about this whole debate, this whole saga, this whole argument. When that occurred, that little beef, he goes into this contract, signing the contract, already unhappy. Then you start to hear about additional things that are typical that he's also unhappy with. For instance, as a pay-per-view star himself, you would expect him to get some sort of cut from the pay-per-view earnings. He didn't. Then there are the basic things. How many free tickets is a guy going to get? What? Seriously, 6 tickets. Then there's a question of the artwork. A lot of people are going to go, what? The artwork's going to scupper the fight. No one's talking about the fight being scuppered. We're talking about whether Dillian Whyte's willing to go to press conferences and things like that. Well, the artwork is one of those things that people will see as silly, particularly hardcore old school boxing fans. The fact of the matter is, athletes in this modern age are a product. And image rights matter because they're trying to build themselves up. This is business. This plays a role in how you're portrayed as a product to enable you to earn in the future. He wants to be portrayed as a star himself because otherwise, if he was to win the fight, he could be portrayed as a Buster Douglas type figure. Oh yeah, well okay, I'd never really heard of Dillian Whyte before. Oh yeah, I know he'd fought on Sky a couple of times on pay-per-view, but he's not really Fury or AJ or Wilder, is he? Whereas if he's a superstar and this is built up as a superstar fight, between two stars essentially, and he beats Fury, well suddenly it catapults him to another level. So things like artwork matters. But it could also be the fact that actually Dillian Whyte doesn't really care about these things, and neither do Team Whyte. They've just gotten spiteful. Because if you're going to tell me it's only what's in the contract that matters, well then technically reasonably promoting the fight means what exactly? By staying silent, in my humble opinion, I am reasonably promoting the fight. Because here you guys are talking about it. You've got my lawyer up there on TalkSport. You've got Frank Warren up on TalkSport. They've had an argument. This has gone viral. And so, yeah, this is what it's all about. This is promoting it. Just like when Derek Chisora taped his mouth with the British Board of Boxing Control, written all over it, that was a form of promotion too. It got people talking about it. Now what? Your move, right? Now what? I am reasonably promoting the fight. Well, we all know to reasonably promote the fight, that's not what's typically done. You turn up to press conferences, you help build the fight. But what's also typically done is that fighters get basic levels of respect and they get tickets comped to them and stuff like that. So it's a tit for tat situation. Whyte's basically saying two can play that game, just like Bobby Brown. Two can play that game you're playing. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to ever appear on Eurovision or anything like that, as you can tell. But you can see what I'm talking about, right? Two can play that game. So how can you blame Dillian Whyte for what's going on here? He's been treated with a lack of respect. This is the reality, regardless of who you think's going to win the fight. And I want to shout out at BattleBox with a double X on Twitter. Richardson is the name that he's got written down. This dude is a massive Tyson Fury fan to the point where he's got his profile pic as Tyson Fury. And he has come out and he said to me, I want Tyson Fury basically to batter Dillian Whyte all over the ring. I'm a big Fury fan. But all you have to do is apply basic logic to know that Dillian Whyte's in the right here. It's about a basic element of respect. It makes no sense for him to turn down this fight. You know, you've got the situation with escrow. He's saying where it's probably true that it's Team Whyte that should have created the escrow account. But what's the point of creating an escrow account if they're not willing to put the money in escrow? They would have had to have come to this agreement. Now, again, why wasn't it in the contract that it should be in escrow? Yeah, they probably wouldn't have demanded that the fight be put, the money be put in escrow had everything else gone smoothly, because it's about an element of trust. But if you don't have that trust between you, then what are you going to do? You're not going to trust them financially either. This is basic stuff, man. And so shout out to Richardson for being a critical thinker, because you can be a Fury fan, realize that actually this has nothing to do with Tyson Fury. Fury wants to fight. Whyte wants to fight. You believe Fury's going to batter Dillian Whyte all over the ring. But come on. You still expect Whyte to get a basic level of respect. Let me know what you think about all that we've covered here today. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. God bless.